I loved the Essendon Adelaide game.
How good was it?
Yesterday? And I one of the reasons is because I really rate Adelaide, and they have had their struggles away from home, but I think their best football is pretty good. But Essendon taught them a lesson. Like that first half, in particular, after Pedler kicked Adelaide's 7th goal, I reckon, it was around at a 9-minute mark of the second quarter. Essendon dominated the next 20 minutes, unlike anything that you see. Their pressure was high. They controlled the ball. The coach was wrapped with what they put out yesterday, but even more about what they are potentially going to see in the future. He nails it there about their competitiveness. They're competitive against everyone. They go and play Geelong down at GMHBA this weekend. I'm fascinated to see how they perform because even when they get done, they're in the contest. And it's been done a different way. They play a high transition game up and down the field. They're the number one at moving the ball from their back half to their front half, but they've been the easiest team to move the other way. But then that's a game style. They impose that game style on the opposition. So sides that don't like high transition, even though they might move the ball well, they actually eventually blow up. And Essendon have been able to add to their defensive layers, and I thought the pressure that they put on Adelaide in that first half in particular was huge. I want to single out Zach Merritt.
Yeah, how good's he been?
Well, he's had 39 touches or more 6 times in his career, and Essendon have been 3-3. Now it's not all on him. But there's been times when he's had lots of touches and it hasn't had maximum effect. He's 39. Yesterday was as impactful as you'd expect. Darcy Parish had the same, but I went back and had a look. So I think, let's praise him for his tackles and his pressure and his clearances and his contested ball. His numbers are no different. His numbers are no different, but his impact looks profound, and that is because he's doing it at key moments, and he's doing it with less ego, less concern about himself, and a greater team focus than ever before.
We've spoken about him.
All credit to him.
A lot this year. It's coming of age season for him. I thought Martin and the comment. Actually, Merritt and Martin have a really uncanny ability to find each other and link up in the chain. So the amount of times those two combined, that was a devastating performance. I'm not sure they are that far away from the best teams. Brad Scott and he's quite understated with that, and then that's what coaches do. But yeah, it's just been a really impressive season from the way that they've gone about it. And for the first time in a long time, you can trust the style of footy that they're playing. They'd love to be a bit sharper defensively, and even yesterday and the finish to the game. But we can't overlook that first half. 40 entries they had, and their efficiency to score. They had 100 more disposals than Adelaide yesterday, who were in good form, Buck. So you've nailed it there.
No, brilliant. And Bombers fans would be wrapped and looking forward to not just September, but the next 7 weeks and this journey that their young side are on. Number 2 for me is Carlton. 3 wins in a row, 3 10-goal wins in a row. Before the bye, Gold Coast, then having the bye, then going Hawthorn and Freo. And you can talk about who they're playing and have they beaten anyone?
Well, they did yesterday. That's always a tough trip.
That trip was worthwhile, and the fact that they're actually playing with some verve. You can see them top of the ground. The ball's moving well. Their best players are now performing better or at expectation, and their coach was pretty happy as well. 7.5 wins out of the 16 games after those last 3 wins. My question is, so the leaders are playing better. Cripps, Walsh, Wiedering in particular. Doherty's played a really consistent year. The ins that have come in, so Martin has been significant because he's a gap between their talls, Curnow and Mackay, and their smalls. And I think he and Silvani have been really impactful in that last little period. And then they've got their competitors, Cunningham and Cottrell, who have come in, and they're just goers. They'll have a crack, but they've helped become part of the glue. They are one of my 3 most disappointing sides. I reckon Sydney are my most disappointing. I think I've got Freo next and then Carlton.
Why?
So we'll get to that. I reckon we'll have a chat about it. I think Sydney just, to have gone that close to a grand final, have all that young talent.
No, I'm more talking about the Blues. So they've won their last 3 in a row. You think do you think they've performed when the pressure of finals and expectation is off?
Well, the expectation is a big one for me. So they play Port Adelaide this week against Marvel. Now, Port Adelaide won 13 in a row, but they're beaten up at the moment, and they might be gettable. I'll find out this week, but because their leaders have performed when the expectation has gone altogether. Their season was done and dusted. Now they're back in the mix. What impact does that have on them? Because they just haven't been able to. They weren't able to withstand. And that was my big question with them at the beginning of the year. Were they going to be able to withstand the expectation and accept that expectation and then still be able to go and get it done?
Blues fans, want your thoughts on that? Bucks sees it as a disappointing season. One thing you will give them credit for, though, is it was looking really ugly. And it was looking ugly for the coach, and there was rumours around Carlton making change, and we knew which way it was headed. So for them to actually dig in as a group has showed some character. But
I agree. But when you're coming from a 5.5 or 5 win season, and you win your last, or the 4.5 it was, from 13 games, you're not coming from any expectation at all. You've bottomed out, and now they've been able to come back when there's nothing more to lose. But they've still got 7 games here. They can now qualify for finals. Potentially, they're more chance now than they were. Than they were earlier in the year. So it's fascinating. It's back on their in their control, and on their leaders, and on their there's no reason why they can't have a crack from here.
All right, Blues fans, you can have your say. I want to speak about the ruck battle or lack of ruck battle yesterday, and whether the ruck and the role of it is completely overrated in this game. What's point 3?
Point 3 is Melbourne. I have real concerns about them.
Concerns?
They beat a St Kilda side who had their 3 players out really quickly. They had 19 scoring shots for a whole game, 46 entries against a crippled side. And there's the same things that are popping up, but Simon Goodwin had something to say about their efficiency up forward. So the expected score actually had St Kilda winning. But Melbourne are now 10 wins. I think they play their next 2 games. They play. Who have they got this week? They play Brisbane at the MCG. Now Brisbane can't win at the MCG apparently. They can't win at the MCG apparently. But I think Brisbane should be favourites going into this game.
Okay. Then they play Adelaide.
Adelaide, and Adelaide can't win at the MCG.
They can't.
I reckon in 2 weeks' time. In 2 weeks' time, we'll sit here, and Melbourne won't just be fighting for their position in the top 4. They'll have to be winning games to finish in the top 8.
And then they play Richmond at the MCG. They can win.
They are coming up.
MCG.
They will be coming up against teams that will be fighting to win games to play in finals. So they won't. There's no easy games coming from Melbourne.
I'm a bit disappointed at the level of disrespect towards Melbourne. From everyone this year.
So here we go. They haven't kicked over 80 points in 7 weeks.
I understand that, but they just knocked off Collingwood a month ago. I was going, well, let's just move past that
Collingwood's
one.
Collingwood's allowed to have a bad one every now and then.
And Melbourne are allowed to have a good one. They go to Geelong and they lose in the last quarter in tough conditions. They have 73 entries last week.
For 5 goals.
Yeah, I understand that. In teeming rain.
They won't have Oliver or Fritsch in the next 6 weeks.
And that's another credit to them for their performance on the weekend.
And I don't.
There is a level of disrespect about Melbourne that I'm seeing filter through the AFL media and the football world, and you may be right.
I don't think
they can win it this year.
I haven't been there. They can win it this year.
They can win the premiership this year.
Unlike you to be so positive.
Someone has to win it. We can't put a line through every team. How many good teams are there? What, 2 good teams? 3 good teams.
I reckon there's 3 good teams.
So only 3 teams can win the premiership right now as it sits.
I don't think Melbourne can win it.
So there's only 3 teams that can win the premiership.
Collingwood, Port Adelaide and Brisbane.
They're the only ones.
And I still think the Cats have got the potential of
from outside the top 4.
I still think 4 spots up for grabs.
Okay. All right. These fans, there's a level of disrespect. 1300 736 736.
Well, kick over 80 points in a game, and then you'll be far more competitive. And it's going to be difficult.
Good discussion. Point 4.
Point 4 is about how tight the competition is. I think 8-point games or elimination finals, however you want to view it. This weekend alone, Sydney play the Western Bulldogs. Gold Coast play St Kilda. Geelong play Essendon at GMHBA, as we said, and I think that's going to be fascinating. Adelaide play GWS, who have won 4 in a row. So that's 4 of our 9 games this round. Then you go to round 19. Essendon play Western Bulldogs. Freo play Sydney. GWS play Gold Coast. Melbourne play Adelaide. So and it keeps going. We will look back at these rounds. This is the most as fascinating as fascinating a season as I can imagine. We've spoken about it consistently. It went from 5 to 14, like from positions 5 to 14 2 weeks ago. I reckon it goes from 4 to 15 now. It's amazing how many teams are going to need to, like, when you're a couple more wins ahead. So Melbourne are 10 wins, and then you've got Fremantle that are on 7, and Sydney they're on 6.5 marginally. I think Sydney have played themselves out of it, but percentage could have an impact, but you're just going to have to win games against teams that see themselves at your level, and they're 8-point games, because if you give those 4 points up, it's going to be hard to catch those teams back.
Saturday games are unreal this week. The problem is they all overlap against each other. Like, so Collingwood and Freo play, then Gold Coast and the Saints, they play at the same time essentially. Then Carlton and Port stand alone, but the night games overlap again. Which games are you going to watch? So the AFL, it's an issue for them, and it has been for a long time. You can't have 5 games on a Saturday where they all overlap when they have this much riding on them. Point number 5.
Yeah, I've got Port Adelaide. I just think just G&D, old-fashioned G&D. So you get 13 wins in a row. They really ground out, the first 4 or 5 of those.
Grit and determination.
That's exactly what it was. Guts and determination. And I think the bloke that embodies that for me is Powell Pepper, Sam Powell Pepper. And he didn't have a massive game, but I just thought, the little handball to Finlayson, selfless but smart. He's been a tough player. He's a combative player. And but he's taught from outside. I just think they've got players that will step up when challenged. Now, Gold Coast at their best can be hard to beat. When they come to play, Tuke Millet's back in, they've got a little bit of momentum, and that's what they had in the first half. Admittedly, Port were at home, but they had to arrest that momentum, win the arm wrestle, and then go away. And they were able to do that, and they've been able to do it consistently. And I reckon maybe the 13th win in a row is hard to do, because when you've got all of those 12 there, you think, okay, well, all of a sudden the loss is going to come.
2 in a row is hard to do in this league.
Houston, Butters, Rosie, Dixon on one leg. Finlayson's playing really well. You've got role players everywhere. They lost Mackenzie early, and were able to. I just think, all credit to them, and all credit to Kenny for being able to withstand that expectation and pressure. Others have wilted under it, but they actually dug deep, got stronger, and I'm impressed watching them go about it.
We'll start way back on Thursday night with Richmond getting it done in a close one against the Swans Bucks.
Yeah, I'm in a pessimistic mood, so I'm going to go with Sydney. I really haven't liked their season, and I think for Richmond, they got away to a really good start, and then the Tigers just ground them out. They clawed them back. Swans lost contested ball again by 8 to a Richmond side who haven't been fated for their contested ball. It's more for their pressure and their outside run and their defensive attributes. But Goulden's had a fantastic season, but I just think across the board for Sydney to be in the position they're in, it's really been really disappointing. And all credit to the Tigers, but I just thought it said more about Sydney. What about the Western Bulldogs Collingwood game?
Yeah, well, you've put me in a pessimistic mood as well, so I'm going to say the Western Bulldogs.
You didn't need my help to do that.
No, well, I was in a positive mood. I wanted to pump up Melbourne and their performance on Saturday night.
Are you proud of yourself?
You brought me back down. So why the Western Bulldogs concede so many goals in a row, and this has been a theme for a long time, dating back to the grand final. So this year, against the Saints, they conceded the last 8 goals of the game. Round 4, 7 goals in a row, quarter 2. Round 12, 6 goals in a row against Geelong. 6 goals in a row against Melbourne. 4 goals against Port Adelaide, the last 4. The last 4 goals against the Giants. And then on the weekend, they had that game in control, and they started so well, and their forwards looked dangerous. I just continually think that the Western Bulldogs underachieve with the list that they've got. Now, they'll turn around and they'll win this week against Sydney. They might beat Essendon, and they might beat GWS, and we'll go, okay, well, they're back.
Essendon's
but against the best teams, they just don't challenge when they should. That's my thoughts on them. The Lions smashed the hapless West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, I'll just go with the Lions. It's reinforced, the fact that they love their own dunghill, and I thought it was great to see Gunston come back. A bit of a soft kill for him, but out of the two, he is one that when it comes to September, when they come to the G this weekend against Melbourne, a Gunston type is exactly the type of player that can be the difference between winning and losing.
Good coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way that it was portrayed as stepping, they're stepping down for a period, going for a training block. I mean, I think Chris Fagan's attributes are always having a longer term picture in mind. He's very measured. They play a very similar way all the time. They don't get carried away. He's not about tricks and about, I suppose, or changing something up to try and beat the opposition of the day. They just want to get good at what they do, execute it better and better, and build steadily. And that's exactly what they've been able to do. But Gunston coming back in gives them, just another string. And as I said, easy kill. But, the next couple of weeks will tell a story, especially this week at the G. Giants and Hawks, it was that was a tight tussle for a long time.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Hawks really impressed by what they did. It's a game the Giants should have won and won it in a tight way. But I was concerned for the Hawks that their season would fall away really badly. They'd had a couple of big losses, 10-goal losses, young group. Season gets long, it's winter, they're tired, couple of injuries bob up, and I thought this could get really ugly. It didn't get ugly. In fact, I thought they probably had their chances to win, kicked 2 goals for in the last quarter to 3 goals straight, which was the difference. I thought Will Day missed a couple of really simple set shots straight in front in about the space of 30 seconds. They're really competitive. They won the midfield battle, I thought, for a young group. Just love John Newcombe, who's had a bit of a flat patch, but thought every time he touched the footy, he drove the ball forward with serious penetration, and that often led to scores. I was wrapped with his game. So I think it was a really strong performance from Sam Mitchell. And the Hawks, let's go to the Saints and the D's, which we've covered a little bit already.
Well, I don't know if I can go with the D's. So I'm
That's a qualitative piece.
Easy. That's my punchline right at the end of this. Clearly the Saints, they're struggling. They're sitting entrenched in the top 8 and have off the back of their really impressive start, but they've struggled to be able to find the consistency in their game. Their defensive structure has fallen away a little bit, although they only gave up 46 insides and again only gave up 79 points. But the general flow in their game has been affected. It didn't help them that they lost 3 players really quickly early in the match. Cordy, Ross and King being out for the rest of the year is going to knock them around. They've only played 30 players this year, St Kilda, and up to a couple of weeks ago they had 15 of them had played every game. Those players that have been so good for them are now starting to drop away. They've only had 11 players that have played every game this year, but only used 30. So they haven't gone to the depth of their list, whether that's because Ross doesn't like what he sees down there or it's simply been injuries. But we've only seen the top, just a little bit over the top half of their list, and he still talks about the qualitative piece. On shot equity, they could have won that game as well, but they're probably finding their level right now, which is closer to what we would have thought. The reason that Ross was brought in, it wasn't a 1-year job, it was going to be a 3 or 4 year job, and there's work for them to do. What about Port Adelaide and Gold Coast?
That's a qualitative piece.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to speak about the Gold Coast. We touched on Port Adelaide, 13 in a row, but with the week that they had, it was unsurprising the starts of the game that they had, and they were in it, and they challenged Port Adelaide, and you thought, Mackenzie went down, you thought, okay, great opportunity for their forwards to get a hold of them. Casbolt looked dangerous and was making Alir accountable. The midfield is strong, and then whammy, as you would say, after half-time, they got struck straight between the eyes, and they're starting to realise that a half a footy's not going to cut it. And they conceded 9 goals. They were beat up around stoppage, -8, inside 50s. I think it was -10, disposed was 55. So apart from the third quarter, it was a really good performance, and they came across winning every stat that you'd probably want to, but they got blown away. Not for the first time this year in 1 quarter of footy. Whammy. And yeah, it's going to be a difficult ride home for Stewie G, you would imagine, with the scrutiny on his job.
Yeah, and that's not unfortunate. It's a reality of the caper, isn't it? And if they win, then that goes away for a period. But that was not going to get the job done for him or for them on the weekend. I've gone for the Geelong North Melbourne game. I think it's just Geelong at GMHBA. I mean, they were always so. This was the first of 5 games that they've got in their run home. Given the ground wasn't ready early, they've been pushed back to the back end. And whilst that's a positive for them in terms of win-loss, I think it's a challenge when you think about when you're going to come back to the bigger ground in the MCG. But they need this. They need these home games, and it's a really good opportunity for them to bank the wins, to improve and get some confidence around their structure, their team style. And they were able to look after North Melbourne pretty easily. I'd expect that the greater challenges will come, but they did what they needed to do.
The Adelaide game, we've touched on Essendon a lot. I'm going to say the Crows. They've gone win-loss, 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 win-loss. And that probably says a lot about where they're at in terms of their consistency. I thought their defence was deplorable yesterday and they just couldn't shut Essendon down, which is a shame because Matty Nix is a defensive coach and prides himself on that.
I think 12 goals in the first quarter. Was it great offense from both sides or was it just average D?
Bit of both. I mean, you can't take away from the way Essendon moved the footy. That was scintillating, as good as I've seen.
And Adelaide Adelaide's efficiency inside as well. 97 points in a poor performance.
Yeah, but they're flat track bullies essentially. They're this year's version of the flat track bullies, I think. And look at their forward line. I thought they had a really good shot because the talent that they've got. You got nothing from Thilthorpe. You got nothing from Fogarty. You got nothing from Rankin again. He kicked 2, but they were when the game was over. So I'm going to say the Crows, and they're just not where I thought they were tracking to be, unfortunately. And finally, the Blues got it done in a really strong performance against Freo by 53.
Yeah, and it's half full or half empty. I've spoken about Carlton, so I'll just go to Freo. I mean, so disappointing. So disappointing by them. They set themselves up, got to 6-6 by the bye, and they've really fallen away. And that would be concerning for the coaching group, concerning for the leadership. Definitely been a bad 6 weeks for them.